There's also a feature that allows you to connect directly to Microsoft's new online network. With a modem and a telephone line, users can simply click on the icon and access Microsoft's brave new cyber world of online information, shopping, electronic mail, multimedia games, and more. By linking the network to Windows 95, Microsoft, the software giant, is now aiming to become the giant of online services as well. So there's lots of new stuff. Whether consumers need or want it, we may soon find out.
4 people now help us look at the new technology and its impact. Ron Erickson is the former chairman of Egghead Software, a national retail software chain, and currently runs his own technological consulting firm in Seattle. Gina Smith is managing editor for Ziff Davis's new media division and a syndicated columnist writing about software and technology. Steve Reynolds is vice president of new media practice at Link Resources, a research and consulting firm based in New York. And Steve Ballmer is executive vice president of sales and marketing for Microsoft Corporation. He joins us from the Microsoft compound in Seattle. And Steve Ballmer, Bill Gates, the CEO of Microsoft, has described this launch tomorrow as the 3rd stage of the 20-year-old PC revolution. What's so revolutionary about this new product?
I think Windows 95 really is revolutionary in 2 ways. Number one, we've had the experience of 20 years of computing. We've been able to look at what people find hard, easy, what they like and what they don't like, and really take a quantum leap forward in terms of ease of use. And I think that's incredibly valuable to be able to draw in more people to the personal computer phenomenon. The second thing, though, I think is even more powerful. Windows 95 really does contain the core infrastructure for software developers and for users to take advantage of the upcoming world of the information highway, the internet, electronic communications. And we think that'll be the next big revolution in terms of the way personal computers can add to the way people interact around the world.
But haven't some of these features that are in Windows 95 been available in other systems, like on Apple and so forth?
Certainly some of them have. I think Windows 95, in some senses, has a range of unique features, but even more importantly, it has a unique synthesis, not only in terms of what it means in ease of use, that brings it up really to the kind of level and beyond that Apple has achieved, but really what it's going to enable for new software programs, programs that let you send computer data while you're talking on the telephone, programs that allow you to access the information of the world, whether it's stored locally on your hard disk or on a computer server somewhere in England or France or Germany. And it's really this unique synthesis that I think is so valuable.
Finally, let me ask you, before we go to everybody else on the panel, Microsoft is spending, I understand, about $200 million on its campaign to launch this. Why is this necessary? Who's it aimed at?
Well, we're really trying to involve a lot of constituencies in Windows 95. Of course, it's very important for us, for hardware manufacturers, to put Windows 95 with their new machines. Of course, it's very important for us to get software developers to see that the next range of innovative, creative, exciting things that they can do for customers is on top of Windows 95. We've done a lot of that. Now it's time to tell customers what's there, not just the computer technical people, not just people in big businesses, but people in small businesses, people in their homes, because Windows 95 is really a product for all of those different communities.
Ron Erickson, is Windows 95 worth buying for the average consumer?
Well, I can only speak personally. I'm going to take some time and not buy right away. I know a lot of people are going to start lining up at midnight tonight to buy the product, but I'm going to stay home and watch Letterman myself.
Why?
Well, I've got a lot of software on my machine, and candidly, I really can't use what I've got today. I need more training. My products are all very feature-rich, and I could use some education and some training about what I've got today. I don't need more software. I don't need new software. I really need to spend some time and understand what I already have.
What do you think about that, Steve Reynolds?
Well, I think I think you could say that at this point, most toasters in the country are over-programmed and underutilized in terms of the features they have. There's no question that if you have the right machine, and that's another quibble I could put to Steve, but if you have the right machine, that this will be a better computing experience. And if you're looking to come in as a first-time buyer or as an upgrade, I think this will be a more powerful experience.
Gina Smith, should everybody out be lining up instead of going to see Letterman to get Windows 95
Well,
tomorrow?
Charlene, this depends on how you define everybody. I think if you've never bought a computer before and you're buying one for the first time, beginning tonight at midnight or any time after, sure, Windows 95 is a good decision. It's certainly a huge improvement over the current version of Windows, easier to use, almost as easy or as easy to use as a Mac, certainly, with a lot more software available for it. But if you're a novice user with a current computer right now that you can't barely figure out, it would really pay to wait, because you really don't know what problems there will be with this software, and it may involve a big investment. You're going to need a new word processor, a new spreadsheet to get advantage of some of these new features.
What about that, Steve Ballmer, for those like Erickson, Mr. Erickson, and those whom Gina Smith says should wait? Should people in those categories wait?
Well, I certainly think there are going to be a lot of people who see immediate value. And, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. A lot of people are frustrated with many of the things that they do on their PC today. To Ron, I would ask, are you frustrated by not being able to have long names for your files, for example?
All right,
if you have
let's
no
ask
level
Ron.
of frustration and level of need,
let's ask Ron.
I believe we'll see some people wait. But I think within the next week or 2 weeks, we're going to see very exciting new applications, the kind of applications that will make it easier for Ron to take better advantage of his PC.
Are you persuaded, Ron? You're going to not watch Letterman and line up tonight?
No, I think I'll still watch Letterman. But indeed, Steve, that is one feature that I'm looking forward to because I have been frustrated with short file names. And no doubt there are going to be people who are going to benefit by many of the features of Windows 95. And obviously I'm a strong supporter and cheerleader of Microsoft and what you do. I just think that there are a lot of people out there who have a lot of assets on their machine, a lot of software, and perhaps their dollars are better spent taking some training, learning how to use what they already have.
Gina?
I mean, just regarding long file names, a lot of people are very frustrated by that. But currently, if this was killing them, the limitation of only having an 8 or 11 character file name, you could buy utilities on the market already for the last 2 or 3 years that would give you that.
What about that, Steve? Both that you can get utilities that will already take care of that, and also Ron Erickson's point that people with limited amount of money to spend really could spend it better than. What does this cost anyway? Is it $90 or?
It depends on what kind of computer you have. You have a big enough computer, which we think probably 65–70% of the computers out there are big enough. It'll cost you probably someplace between $90 and $100 to upgrade, depending upon where you choose to buy. It's not our projection that everybody will run out tonight or tomorrow or the next day. But there are today well over 100 million Windows users around the world. And I do think that even if we get 5 or 10% to run out over the next several months, they'll start to see the value instantly. And I hope that word of mouth will influence people like Steve and Gina and Ron.
Steve Reynolds, you said you had some quibbles. What is your quibble?
Well, I might take issue with Steve respectfully about the portion of home computers, not the 100 million which may also include some computers and businesses, but the portion of home computers, which we project to be about 35 million homes or so, and that the majority of those, and you out there with such machines running this version of Windows 95 will probably not see that much of a performance difference if you're running Windows today. I think there's a portion of those machines, as Steve said, that probably are appropriate for this. I would put it at much lower, perhaps, than his definition. But I think the point is that you've got to evaluate carefully whether you have the right hardware. I think it requires some RAM, and not to do computer speak, but
that's memory. How much memory the computer has? Memory
and also chip type. And maybe I would ask Steve if you think that folks with 486 machines and at what level of 486 chip really Windows 95 is appropriate for versus a Pentium.
Right. Well, before you answer that technical question, let me ask you the basic question, because I've seen some who say that you know, this new program is going to cause people to have to buy not only new software to be compatible with this program, but also they're going to have to buy new hardware, that is, new computers. Is that the case? I mean, is this $90 that you're talking about for the program itself going to be where it ends with the consumer?
I think you really have three classes of consumers. You have people who have today's DOS machines. I think most people with DOS computers today will wind up buying a new computer if they choose Windows 95. You have people who may be on non-PC type systems like the Mac who get interested in this because of the range of software available. They would have to buy a new computer. If you look at the vast majority of Windows users, I think 2/3 or so will wind up spending the $90. If the other people are interested in upgrading, they will have to buy either more memory or more hard disk or both, and that'll certainly add cost to the equation. But I think anybody who's got a so-called 486 chip and 8 megabytes of memory is going to be very happy making the upgrade.
Gina Smith?
And certainly, I think 486, as he said, and 8 megabytes is good. But also another thing consumers should be aware of is they might need new software. When we talk about long file names, the ability, multitasking to run more than one thing at once, we're talking about now getting a new version of Word or WordPerfect or Excel or Foxbase or whatever it is, the programs you use every day for writing and calculating, just to take advantage of some of these features. You know, you don't use an operating system, you use an application, and that's $100 a pop.
Steve Ballmer, is this going to make people more productive? I mean, why should people invest all of this if all of these upgrades are going to be necessary and all of this money is? I mean, what is the overall point?
Well, I think this release of Windows does have great potential to make people more productive. I also think this release of Windows will be the catalyst for the next generation of applications that let us all get online, communicate, access information. And I also consider that a form of greater productivity. But that's not just people doing what they're doing with their PCs today with more productivity. That's really people getting more productivity out of their personal computer. I think that's a very important thing that Windows 95 enables. And whether it's today or a month from now or 4 months from now, I'll bet you if you reconvene this group, we'd all agree there's exciting new things you can do with your PC with Windows 95 that you couldn't do before.
Are you persuaded yet, Ron Erickson?
Well, Steve, I do have an open mind. And obviously, I'm going to take a look at the product. I do think that the feature to allow people to access the internet and to be part of this global connectivity is very positive. I think that has very positive impacts for peace and prosperity to get people linked around the globe. And so I think that's a wonderful new feature. I do think, however, that to go back to some of the points made earlier, that people are going to have to buy new application software, and this is going to be a major expenditure for a number of people that is not entirely necessary.
All right, let's take a closer focus now on the company behind Windows. Again, we turn to Paul Salmon for background.
Windows 95 is the latest in a long line of Microsoft operating systems, the can't-compute-without-them software products that made the company into the colossus of the software industry. With $4.5 billion in revenues last year, profits of better than $1 billion. But 20 years ago, when Microsoft was launched, co-founders Bill Gates, the clean-shaven one, a Harvard dropout, and Paul Allen were simply writers of computer programs, software.
They weren't trying to build an empire. It was a lot more interesting than going to class at Harvard.
Esther Dyson is editor of Release 1.0, a newsletter about the computer industry.
At the point Bill and Paul Allen showed up, there were two big changes happening. One was the interesting action was going on in software instead of in hardware, and the interesting action was going on in what people thought were these toy computers. The grown-ups didn't get it. They wanted these big computers that did corporate stuff, and here were these kids fooling around with toy computers, but they were the future, as we now know 20 years later.
Gates, Allen, and Microsoft got their big break in 1981 when the colossus of computer hardware, IBM, hired them to create the operating system for its new line of personal computers, or PCs, now museum pieces. The idea was to counter competition from the likes of user-friendly Apples. These desktop computers may have been toys to IBM, which made its profits on huge mainframe systems, but increasingly, PCs were being used by small businesses.
With this tool for modern times, a person can quickly master such jobs as accounting or word processing.
IBM's tools for modern times soon became the world's best-selling personal computers. Microsoft, whose product was needed to run each and every one of them, found itself with an inexorable stream of profits. In fact, IBM and most personal computer makers besides Apple included the Microsoft operating system with the machine and paid Microsoft each time. Microsoft, meanwhile, used its pivotal, oh-so-profitable position in operating software to expand its product line. It created software programs for accounting, word processing, and the like. In 1985, Microsoft shipped its first version of the Windows system, which it then updated twice.
Point of fact, it takes the average person an average of 20 keystrokes to do an average task with their PC. Counterpoint. You can do it with just a point and click with Microsoft Windows.
There were problems at first, and Apple's system was more advanced and easier to use, but once Windows took off, there was no stopping it, given all the IBMs and IBM clones out there.
Windows was a good implementation on a popular machine of a lot of ideas that really came from Xerox and from Apple. But it was what the market needed, and because of Microsoft's strength in the marketplace, it became the standard.
The standard. As Microsoft had learned in the early 80s, if you can become the exclusive supplier of the standard that all machines use, you've got a cash cow. Microsoft made Windows the new standard by competing very aggressively. For example, its practice of getting computer makers to pay for Windows every time they sold a machine, with or without the program, preempted rivals. Complaints by Microsoft's competitors led to a succession of Justice Department investigations. One resulted in an agreement by Microsoft to abandon its preemptive licensing practice. Another caused Microsoft to abandon plans to buy Intuit, makers of a popular home finance program. And a third investigation into the linking of Microsoft Network to Windows 95 is apparently still being pursued. The Justice Department's overall concern, in a phrase, is Microsoft too big?
Gina Smith, is Microsoft too big? I mean, for one thing, Windows 95 is going to be pre-installed in every computer sold. What impact is that going to have?
Well, I don't think big is a crime. Certainly IBM is big, Chrysler is or was big. I mean, being big is part of capitalism, and that's the award Microsoft gets for being so competitive. The issue isn't, is Microsoft big? It's that, is its success and control of both operating systems, as we spoke of Windows, and applications like, for instance, Microsoft Word or word processor, is its control of both of those anti-competitive? And that is the issue that has so many people riled up right now.
Why is that? I mean, is it because of driving other people out of business, or?
Well, I mean, it's the old saw about making the razors and the blades. Certainly, if you're the one making the razors and the blades, your blades can better take advantage of the advances that you make in your razors quicker and better. Now, of course, Microsoft says this isn't the case, and we hope that's true. But what the Justice Department and certainly rivals are worried about is, how ethical is it? Where's the line drawn between the two? And, you know, is that anti-competitive? Can a competitor now build a word processor when the name recognition of Windows is so popular? Whether it's right or wrong, this is the issue that's being looked in right now.
Steve Ballmer?
Well,
is Microsoft too big? I mean, how do you respond to this?
No, I don't think we're too big. I think our responsibility is clear. We have to aggressively do the best software products that we can for the end customer. We have been fortunate to be big. We are fortunate to be able to do $1 billion of R&D a year. We need to really invest that in making better products, more products, lower priced products for our customers. Our goal can't be to focus in on our competitors. Our goal's got to be to aggressively try to move the technology forward in ways that let folks like Ron and Gina and Steve all benefit, and that really is what we're focused in on.
Ron Erickson, what do you think about that? Is there anything to be worried about in this bigness of Microsoft and its domination of the market?
No, I don't think so. In fact, I don't think the government's done a very good job historically when they approach big business. Certainly they didn't do well with IBM when they went after IBM years ago, and AT&T as well. I think our country really benefits by Microsoft and that $1 billion of R&D they spend. Now, at the same time, it is tough for the small software developer, the garage shop, to get his software, his new program on the shelf, because Microsoft dominates and the big five dominate the shelves of the retail chains. But I think that the country is best served by Microsoft in its current form. And I would really be disturbed if the government were to be too aggressive in their pursuit. I think it's good to have Microsoft under the microscope, but beyond that, I think the status quo is just fine.
Steve Reynolds, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I would pretty much concur. I don't think that big is the issue. Microsoft is certainly important. They're certainly powerful. They're certainly influential. And I think that as long as what they're doing is not brazenly anti-competitive, and the Justice Department seems to be looking into that, there really isn't a problem. As Mr. Erickson said, though, it is sometimes difficult for smaller companies to get shelf space, but I think that would be the case if there were, say, a second competitor equal to Microsoft in size, that there are naturally some large titans who dominate a given industry.
But the Justice Department probes revolve around the idea that Microsoft has become a giant, perhaps too large, with unfair practices that hurt competitors. Is there any truth to that, as far as you can see, Gina Smith?
Well, I think there are a lot of competitors who feel there's truth to that, but I think really the market will bear this out a lot quicker than the Justice Department ever will. You know, bigness, if anything, is a detriment, and the bigger you are, the slower you move. And as Steve pointed out, yes, the government tried so hard to break up IBM and never succeeded, yet IBM was its own worst enemy. It got too big and too slow. In fact, Microsoft itself might benefit by breaking itself up and being more competitive in that manner.
Is that likely to happen, Steve Ballmer?
No, ma'am. We think there is great benefit that accrues to our customers by us being able to take an integrated view of the world. We are better in every business that we're in because we have an appreciation for the whole experience of the customer. And I think that's what we have to focus in on.
But what
if
about
the synergy is good, then we should pursue it.
What about those who argue, though, that with Microsoft dominating the market and going after more and more areas of the market, that there's no room for people to come in and even improve the product, that once you put the product on the market, that's all there is, and you have to be content with whatever it is that Microsoft delivers?
In the last 5 years in the United States, we've gone from having about 5,000 companies in the software business to having about 70,000 companies in the United States in the software business. I certainly think that speaks dramatically to the huge opportunity for people to open up and get into this business. And we are very strong in the operating systems business. We're very strong in word processors and spreadsheets. But the range of things people want to do on their computers is so much bigger than that. And all of that has attracted all of these many entrepreneurial companies who have very successfully built opportunities.
Gina Smith?
Well, this is all certainly true, but the problem that some companies, at least as a journalist, tell me they have with this isn't that Microsoft is big in one area or in another area or in 5 areas. It's the effect that the bigness across the board has. For instance, you hear a lot about Microsoft Network. This is the online service Microsoft is bundling in with Windows, which isn't a problem at all to me. Microsoft certainly has a right to go out.
Which is to do?
Which is an online service like America Online or Prodigy, allows people to dial in and get news, sports, other kinds of information. With Microsoft Network, if Microsoft were to so choose, they could make product updates available for instance, their word processor. So if you're a Word user, it would be much easier to get a fix for a problem in the software or an update than it would if you had bought perhaps Lotus Word Pro, a competing product. As a consumer and not as a journalist, I know that I would consider that when buying, because problems are a fact of life in computing no matter how easy a software product is.
Steve Reynolds, did you have something to add to that?
Just a hypothetical question for Steve. Steve, if Microsoft did have to be split along operating system and apps lines, which would you rather work for?
Whatever that means, I'm not quite sure. You want to translate that into plain English?
Just an in-joke.
People like to focus in on the various pieces of our business. I certainly don't think we're going to be split into pieces. I think that if anybody who pursues that is pursuing something that's going to be damaging to consumers around the world in terms of taking advantage of their PCs. I have a lot of fun with all the different parts of our business, the home, the big business, the operating systems, the word processors and spreadsheets, so I wouldn't pick a favorite son.
One vice president of Microsoft was quoted as saying that Microsoft was going after 100% of every market that it's in, and that eventually it was going to move into entertainment and banking and other areas. I mean, is that what your ultimate plan is, to totally dominate the market?
No, I think in any business we get into, we tell our people, any customer who's not your customer, why? You've got to understand what's not good about our product, what's not good about our support, what's not good about our service. So, I mean, you can stretch this out and sort of say it in a flowery way, which I think one of our guys did on one occasion, but we certainly do push our people to try to ask the question, when people don't like our product, why not? Now, we're in a few businesses today in the software industry, but the software industry is very, very broad. And we certainly don't plan on getting into every aspect of the software business. But when we're in, we want to absolutely ask, what is it that people like? And when people don't like our products, why not?
Ron Erickson, with Windows 95 being installed in every computer that's being sold today, what impact do you see that having on the other services that are out there, like America Online, CompuServe, and so forth?
Well, I think clearly this has their attention. I mean, you've seen a lot of interest from AOL and CompuServe and Prodigy. They're very concerned about this. I think it makes them more competitive. I think it helps them to enhance their product, because the consumer is going to go to the best product, and I think Steve points to that. Whether it's Microsoft's network, AOL, or CompuServe, the consumer wants the best product. I think probably more interesting here is what some commentators have said about Netscape, that ultimately perhaps computers are going to be empty shells, and people are going to simply access the internet through their computers, and these various services will really fall by the wayside. I mean, at least that's one thought that people have.
Gina Smith, what do you think the impact of having Windows 95 in all of the computers is going to have on the rest of the industry?
Well, I can tell you that America, I mean, I think Ron just understated that a lot, because these people are just scared to death. In fact, the president of America Online and of CompuServe wrote a personal letter to Bill Gates, it was kind of pitiable, just begging him not to make this move.
Why? Because this could drive them out of business or hurt their business?
They were very, very worried that it would severely hurt their business and possibly the online business. Now, I don't know that I agree with that completely, and certainly the Microsoft Network in this early rendition isn't as deep or as broad in terms of content as the other services. And current users, the 3 million people on America Online, aren't all going to just jump off and run to Microsoft Network. But over time, when you talk about 10 million PC shipping, new PC shipping every year, and every one of those having that, many studies show that 60% of people given software will just go ahead and install it. Now, whether they stay with it, that depends on how good the product is, and I agree with it. But they do get a head start there.
Whether or not they can afford to go out and buy all the other things.
It would be as if Chevron put a gas tank in my driveway, and when I left every day, I would fill up with my Chevron gas. Why would I, unless the gas were bad or I was enough of an auto nut to know the difference in weights of gasoline, I might never go.
And I think I hear universal agreement on this panel that even with the bigness of Microsoft, that none of you believes that there's any room for government interference or regulation of the industry at this point?
I don't think the government has historically understood the issues well enough to really intervene, and I think the market really will solve this. If there is a problem, the market will decide, and if there isn't, the market historically is smarter than the government.
You agree, Steve Reynolds?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fastest way to return the 70,000 software businesses that are now out there to whatever they were doing before would be to get the government involved.
And Ron Erickson, you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. We need to keep the government out of this.
And Steve Ballmer, I'm sure you agree.
No complaints here.
Well, this is rare in the annals of MacNeil Lehrer, so in any event, we will end on that note. Gina Smith, Steve Reynolds, Steve Ballmer, and Ron Erickson, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.